You know those moments when you're doing what you love in your business? Maybe it's standing on stage or creating content. Whatever it is, you're totally immersed and time just seems to slip by. This is called the flow state.
At SpeakerFlow, we're obsessed with how to get you there more often. Each week, we're joined by a new expert where we share stories, strategies, and systems to help craft a business you love. Welcome to Technically Speaking. Da-da-da-da. We are live.
We are here. Look at us go.
So good to be here. Nick, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you.
Honestly, best fanfare ever. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, best fanfare. Da-da-da-da. We got to bust out some trumpets one day.
That may be a thing that we do. Although I don't know if our listeners like it.
If you do, I expect to come back on it. And I know that one.
Okay, you'll be the maiden voyage of our new format where we just play the trumpet.
Beautiful.
Fun fact, I actually played the trumpet in like third grade or something like that. So
Wow,
I might
I
be
didn't
able
even
to
know that.
bust that little do out. We'll see. I feel like it's a challenge now.
Third grade. I'm looking forward. Maybe have some practice first, mate.
I don't know.
It's a little
I'm sure
bit of practice.
my third grade skill set is plenty.
Austin's a bit overconfident, so.
Oh man. Well, yeah, we're super excited for the show. Thanks for coming on again. So I was we were looking at kind of you and what you're all about and the various places you've been before the show, and we found a super cool interview that you gave at some point. I forget the actual like publication that it came out in, but one of the questions that you got asked was like, what companies or brands or something do you respect, or something along those lines? And you referenced Patagonia, which I love Patagonia.
Yeah.
And I'm curious from your angle, A, why that's the choice that you gave, but also B, are you an outdoorsy person? Like, do you like Patagonia because you go spend 0-degree nights out in the tundra, or do you just like the purple mountainscape on your jacket?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think the answer to the second part of the question is no. I'm an aspirational. I think in my head I'm that outdoorsy person.
Nice.
But
Excellent.
I just can't do it. And my wife kind of constantly takes a mickey out of me of the fact that who I think I am as opposed to who I really am are two completely different things. But in terms of the brand itself, to be honest, kind of obviously, certainly in the UK, it's been in the news for the announcement of everything they're doing kind of over the last few months. The interview that I did when I quoted the brand was a while before that. And fundamentally, it was a time when companies were talking about purpose and how they live their purpose and individuals were. And from the outset, they had their purpose, and they never deviated it from it. They never stopped anything. This was what they were going to do, and they were going to do it. And actually, that's how they grew as they did. And to me, it's just a baseline of turning around and saying, if you believe in something, and this is who you want to be, whether it's an individual or whether it's a company, then if you follow that dream, if you follow that drive, you will succeed. And I just love that innate belief. And the fact it's an amazing company and what it does, and its purpose, it almost kind of is it's the icing cherry and everything else like that on the cake. But the core of it is the fact that this is what we want to do, and we're going to stick to that. And it's not just kind of a mission statement on a piece of paper or something like that. It's everything about every single person who's part of that company. And I think that's joyful.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
it has a different dimension to companies, and it's striking how many brands like still to this day don't follow suit as a purpose-driven type of organization. It allows for a more human connection with a brand, I feel like, than just associating to the product, because now you can get behind something that's more intangible, more emotional, and I think that creates a lot of impact in people.
Well, I think people, companies struggle to understand that actually good and bad is still a representation of you. So you don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to be just good. What you have to do is you have to be able to live who you really are, and therefore companies they layer on stuff on top of kind of who they really are in order to create this purpose, and they get found out.
Oh, true.
That's right.
Yep. Authenticity is really, I think, a new currency in today's world, especially because we live in the age of the internet. And the internet it's so interesting because at its core, it's a way to connect people together. But the byproduct of it maturing the way that it has is that it's a very transactional environment in a lot of cases. And so I think the brands that are standing out, that are making waves, that people are excited about and evangelizing about and everything, those are the ones that have tied in that authentic, genuine sort of feeling alongside the ability to be transactional It's a beautiful thing.
They tell a story about themselves. I think that's my thing.
Right.
Is kind of, the internet is a very kind of, and we're seeing this in the world today, it's a very polarizing thing where you have to have an opinion, and you presume that opinion has to make yourself stand out, so you make it a big, bold statement, whether you believe that's good, bad, right, left, up, down, whatever it is. But actually what we believe in, and this is kind of, if I bring it back to the world we exist in, which is speaking, is the stories you tell. So then you go back to Patagonia, they told a story. And actually the reason I believe, or they tell a story, the reason I believe in it as a brand is I want to be part of that story. And as we started, I'm not an outdoorsy sort of person, but because of them, I believe I am. And like, other brands need to do that, rather than turning around and saying our purpose is this, and that's our headline, and there's nothing below the surface. It's whether you call it authenticity, but I just love the fact that we're all storytellers. Not only are we all storytellers, actually we're all story listeners. We grew up listening to our parents tell stories. That's what we want to be doing in our lives, and that's actually what brings us happiness and joy.
Hey,
For
man,
sure.
5 minutes in, dropping truth.
That's right. Yeah. Would you say, Nick, that that's like where you get your purpose from with Speaker's Corner, or like how would you define that for yourself?
Yeah, you know something kind of, I wish I was one of our amazing speakers who gets up on stage and kind of can change people's minds and thoughts and opinions and stuff like that. I wish I was that person. My ego kind of maybe says that I'm not and everything like that, but what I am and what we have at Speaker's Corner is we have the chance to influence people by putting the right person on stage for them. And we live in certainly the world of speaking, we live in a world where it's very easy to say, I am a speaker. And it's very easy to kind of position yourself and get a nice website and get out there as a speaker, maybe because you've done some events and things like that. But actually, people don't know what you're really like. They don't know what the true person is, what they're going to get on stage. And so we actually have that privilege of basically being able to curate the speaker, curate the content, and stick that person up on stage, making sure everyone in the audience has a good time. But most importantly, for a few people in that audience who are sitting there and actually are looking for more, that's speaking to contention. And the fact that that's our privilege and our pleasure, honestly, it's like not many people get to do that. Yes, we all sell and we all do this and the other, but actually what we are doing, and I firmly believe this at Speaker's Corner, I firmly believe this in the speaking world, is we can influence and help people in this crazy, crazy world we live in.
Oh, I love that.
You're like a broker of life-changing experiences.
It's genuine.
Yeah.
It gives us. I love I fell into this industry. Like, kind of, when we set up Speaker's Corner, I fell into it. It was not my dream ever to be a speaker bureau or anything like that, Speaker's Corner. But I think, like, when you go back to authenticity, maybe the fact that we love what we do, and we love the fact that we are helping people get the opportunity to listen to these amazing people who can change your mind and change your life and change your direction and give you ideas and give you focus. What a privilege. I mean, how many people could say that about their jobs? Yeah, kind of, you might produce an amazing piece of software, or you might produce an amazing kind of shoe, or amazing this, that, and the other, and it's going to make people feel good. But these people who stand up on stage and actually make you change the way you think and change the way you act.
It's a big deal.
It's a big
That's why
deal.
Austin and I have affinity for this.
Responsibility as well.
Yeah, it's a huge responsibility. I think that Austin and I, we can talk about this all the time, and I think our listeners have probably heard us rant about this. But that's why when we stumbled into this space, we were so excited about it. This group of people that we get to work with are changing the world. It's so intrinsically motivated, it's very hard to find in any industry. It's a lot of extrinsically motivated, money grabbing type of scenarios. And I mean, every one of the speakers you're putting on stage truly wants to make a difference for that audience, and you, being, let's say, the broker for that to happen, want to make sure that's the case too. And it's hard to find. It's such a uniquely positioned industry for that reason. And it's just such a beautiful thing.
And I think what fascinates me most, and one of the things, is that when we talk about what makes a great speaker, and we're discussing how can someone become a better speaker, and actually someone wants to become a professional speaker so they can earn money and turn it into a career and stuff like that. It comes down to, like, I wrote my book now, it's called Speaking with Confidence, which I wrote kind of at the beginning of the pandemic, which was obviously the worst time to ever talk about, like, public speaking live, but there we go. But the point about it was all about, actually, we all have our stories to tell. So you've got to start from a place of I'm telling my story. You've got to start from a place over I am there to share with people stuff. It's not you're doing it in order so you can make money. It's not so you can become famous, so you can kind of gain the attention. It's because I've got something which I feel other people need to listen to, and I'm privileged the fact that I can do that, so I'm going to go and do that. because by standing on stage and telling my story, people are going to relate to me and they're going to get involved. When I say I'm not a speaker, the truth is I believe everyone's a speaker. I believe all three of us here could stand up on stage if we're talking about ourselves or talking about something we're passionate about or talking about something that we really believe in. Because actually, we don't mean everyone will come on the ride with you. It's when you go up on stage with a kind of having got a designed speech, which actually has been written for you by someone else, which actually talks about this, which you don't really believe in. Or even if you're in that board meeting or in that meeting at the office where you're just talking about the latest kind of plan for your business, but you don't really believe in that, you're going to get found out. Whereas actually, if you talk about what you really believe in, we're all on that journey with you.
That's where the conviction comes from.
Yeah. Man,
Exactly.
I love the way that you think. Good people here with us today, folks.
Right.
You're such a humble guy. I'm such a big fan. Speaker's Corner is a very successful organization. I'm one of the reasons I'm so excited to talk to you is because like you're really out there doing the thing. I think I saw like over 8,000 speakers you've represented or do represent.
We're up to about 10,000.
10,000. Oh my goodness.
That's a huge number. And like 1,000 events a year or something like that, right?
It's now about 1,500, 1,700, something like that.
Oh,
wow.
Right.
Well, listen, the marketplace is an amazing place at the moment in the context of the demand for, like, we can talk about virtual and we can talk about in person, but there's an understanding that actually we all want to experience connection. And I think right now, with the world being so topsy-turvy, I think the joy of this connection having speakers is they're asking you questions and they're posing thoughts, and therefore actually no one's come up with answers. So almost there's a greater freedom more than ever to have those discussions. So we're seeing, as a market, we're seeing more and more speakers coming in. Again, I said it before, but kind of it's easy to become a speaker, but actually, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you market yourself? How do you position yourself? How do you get the opportunity to speak on stage? That's really the game. And so, yes, we say we've got 10,000 speakers on our database, but the truth we work with, but the truth of the matter is, for all these speakers, is there's many more who are trying to get in there. How do you elevate yourself above your competition? Because the speaking marketplace is a competitive marketplace. Don't just think because you've written a book or you've been on telly or you've climbed a mountain or anything like that, you have a right to speak. You have to engage with us and you have to make us want to hear you.
Yeah,
that's right. Speaking of truth.
Yeah.
So what do you think is attributed to the success of Speaker's Corner? I mean, 1,500 events in a year? Is it only due to the marketplace, you think? And, the world being so topsy-turvy? Is that what you equate that to?
I think that from my perspective, Speaker's Corner was my brother and I, Tim, who's my brother, we built the company. We talk all about brothers building companies, stuff like that. But from the outset, our backgrounds were completely different. We fell into this. And we came into it with two distinct things. One of the things was, on our website, we're only going to have a really small fraction of the speakers that actually we work with, because we aren't a listing site. We're not a kind of directory of speakers where the clients pick which one they want. Because the truth is, anyone can stick a biography of themselves up on stage, on a page. What you don't have is what they're really like behind the scenes. So what we want them to do is to call us. And the other thing we said is, we're a non-exclusive speaker bureau, meaning that our clients are the ones who are booking the speaker. And what we have to do is give them the best advice as to who the speaker is, which means that if we were to manage any of these people exclusively, then we're kind of bastardizing the whole thing by the fact we're playing both sides. And I never like that, or we never like that, I should say. So we're very, very clear about those two things. And then, and hopefully you've already got this impression from me, I'm a gobby so-and-so who's always always good to have a chat and has opinions. So we were quite proud of it, and we were like, we're going to talk about this. And this was a time when the marketplace was there, but it wasn't really spoken about. So we were out there talking about what we want to do and how we want to do it and how we want to build the industry, kind of rather than Speaker's Corner. And because of that, hopefully, the business grew. We always used to say that our aim of life is to convince clients, firstly, why do you book a speaker? Why do you have an external speaker? More importantly, why do you pay for them? But why do you put that external speaker? We then turn and say, okay, if we answer that for them, we then turn around and say, why do you use a speaker bureau rather than just Googling motivational speaker on the website, on the internet, and just finding the first person? And if we answer that one and we explain to them the reason you use a speaker bureau is because everyone can say they're a speaker and we actually understand these speakers so we can give it to a level. Then the third question, which is why use Speaker's Corner, is almost answered because we've answered those first two for them, and therefore we've gained their trust and we've brought them on board with us. And I think because we took that route of not necessarily selling ourselves, but selling the marketplace and educating our clients, it meant that people wanted to take time to speak to us. And that's what I feel. And still at Speakers Corner, as we grow, we still believe in that. We believe in the fact that I'd rather hear one of my team have a half-hour conversation with our client talking about their event and what they hope to achieve, rather than having a 1-minute conversation with a client who phones up and says, hey, we want to book so-and-so, can we book so-and-so? That's not fun. That's transactional. We don't want that. We want to get deeper and form relationships with our clients.
Yeah, you're really living out those values.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's such a unique take on the bureau industry too. Like you said, they usually are playing two sides of the coin, exclusive speakers while trying to manage the client. It's like you're reinventing the way the relationship should be, and that's super awesome.
I think, again, I think we said this kind of when we were saying hello to each other earlier on, but my belief is the marketplace is only going to grow. I can only talk personally for myself, and I'm confused about this world, and actually what I need to do is need external viewpoints. Every company, every individual we need to learn from each other. Therefore, the role of speakers becomes ever more important to ask those questions, pose those questions. So if we can educate our clients about that and grow both with those clients about the number of events they're doing, but also with new clients, then suddenly the marketplace just gets bigger and bigger. So why not do that rather than actually scrapping with kind of in a marketplace that actually hasn't reached its potential yet? We're not mature. We're going to get there, but we're not there yet.
Well, the opportunities continue to grow more and more every day. Which should be a call to action for everyone. Like there's opportunity abounds, and it only is increasing every day.
And I think we listen to our speakers the whole time, and a lot of them talk about collaboration, and talk about kind of this whole concept about how we're working together. And as an industry, as a speaking industry, we should understand that whether your speakers working with other speakers, whether your bureaus working with other bureaus, whether your speakers working with speaker bureaus, we can all work together. We compete. Let's compete fairly. Let's make sure the client, whoever you perceive the client is, whether you perceive the client to be the company who are booking a speaker, or you perceive your client to be the artist, the speaker who wants to develop a career, let's treat them with the respect, and let's treat them with the dignity, and let's make sure that they get the whole picture rather than just thinking it's about a race to the bottom of how much does this person charge or anything.
Yeah, man, so true. Such a valuable perspective. So I'm curious for you, like there's people listening to this show that are feeling inspired by everything that we've discussed so far. They feel the call to go and do the work that we're talking about here. I'm wondering, from your perspective, from somebody that's seen the progression that a professional speaker, quote unquote, as such, would go through as they're building this into a career. Can you, really high level, help us understand, what does a typical path look like for somebody that feels inspired and called to get on stage, from that to it being a predictable career, something that you can do?
So I find it a really interesting question. You say, what's a predictable path? Do you want me to tell you what the typical path is, or would you like to know my opinion about what I think the path should be? I think they're two very distinct things.
Ooh, can you maybe help? Maybe give us both angles.
A little bit of both.
Okay,
Yeah.
Do some compare and contrast here with us.
Okay, so then kind of the typical path to me is someone kind of has a trigger point in their life. Now that might be a big trigger point, like they're suddenly appearing on television, a big television, or they climb a mountain, or they run a race, or they do something kind of which is a life-changing moment. And they're advised, or they have thoughts about that, means they have something so amazing that they should be standing up on stage and be able to talk about it, or kind of discuss how they felt and everything like that. And don't get me wrong, that's absolutely true. But, and this is why I'm saying that that's a typical path, but my opinion is that means they're always going to be dependent on a specific thing. They're always talking about basing it around a thing. And actually, the truly great speakers are not talking about a thing. They're talking about an idea. They're thought leaders. And therefore, the best path for a speaker is to understand, what is my message? What actually am I trying to get the audience, who are the stars? The speaker's not the star. The audience is the star. What are they going to think, feel, do when they leave that room with you there? Because if you start from that place, then you can weave in your stories which demonstrate the whole point. But you start thinking from there, and at that point you turn around and you say, okay, I have a message, I want to deliver it. I have the fact I sailed across the ocean. I have an amazing story which actually can demonstrate my point. I've got all the components. The next step is to turn around and say, this industry is actually a proper industry. And I use the word proper to turn around and say, it's a career. And the truth is, for most people, when they turn around and say, I would like a career in an industry, they actually plan in their heads how they're going to get ahead in that industry. And actually put in place kind of a strategic thought and maybe some ideas and stuff like that, rather than just launching themselves in there. And I kind of, you go to extremes to say, like, for example, a doctor will train for 8 years to become a doctor and then go through various stuff like that. And my whole thing is, too many speakers announce themselves as speakers, but they don't have the assets, the brand and everything behind them, which actually turns them into a professional speaker. Now, from my perspective, it's like when you're starting out and you make that decision that I want to be a speaker, understand the game isn't your ability on stage. That's a small part of the game. Because most people see maybe one or two or a few more speakers every year. Therefore, as long as you're a good speaker, you're going to be good enough. Like, I see 300 odd speakers a year or whatever it is. So therefore, if you want to spend hours discussing the nuances of how you can improve as a speaker, and I can talk about my experience in the world of public speaking and my experience in the whole thing, I can talk about the nuanced stuff. But most audiences aren't steeped in that world, so they want to hear a good speaker. So don't presume you're going to be a great speaker and have a great career because you're a good speaker on stage. A high percentage of the game is how do I get that opportunity to stand up on stage? Not a high percentage, that is the game. Because if you don't get that opportunity, it doesn't matter how good a speaker you are. So why, if I'm a booker, if I'm an event organizer, if I'm any kind of whatever you want to call me, why would I book you? Because the truth is, you might have climbed that mountain, but there's no one else who's climbed that mountain. So if I heard your name, what's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to Google you. Is there stuff on the internet supporting your position, not just in terms of your story as the adventurer and the mountain climber, but also your position as a keynote speaker? Just your kind of the message that you're telling me you're giving, which I read on your one-page biography, is that featured in Management Today or whatever business publication we're talking about, stuff like that, which underpins what you're actually going to be delivering on stage? Have you got that whole brand together? Because if you've got that whole brand together, then when you launch yourself and suddenly I hear your name and I Google you or I speak to a speaker bureau like Speaker's Corner and they recommend you, I'm being kind of, it's justifying the fact I'm going to spend money on it. And suddenly it moves away from that moment in time. It moves away from that kind of idea and it becomes a complete package. You are building a brand. Going back to Patagonia, going back to any other brand, understand that you as a speaker, you are a brand. That you're not a speech. Make sure everything about that brand and everything you're doing fits in with the cycle so that whatever happens, that's what's being lived.
You're not a
long answer to a short question.
Oh, it's so great.
We can just wrap it up here.
I know, right?
No.
You said one line there. You said you're. I'm paraphrasing, but you're not a speech. You're a brand. I think that is so important for people to hear, and it's so weird because I feel like there's a little bit of like, I don't know if this is the right word for it, but like cognitive dissonance because we're valuable because of the thing that we do to get on stage, but that's not the thing that gets you on stage. It's such an important thing to understand, and it's so many people's expectations are not met because of that. I really hope that sinks in for people.
I completely agree. I think it's really interesting, kind of the earlier question about why do speakers want to grow and actually our position kind of in terms of being non-exclusive. It gave me the freedom to sit down with speakers and say, and like, at times I can't believe I've said this in the past, but it's like, yeah, you've climbed Everest, but so what? Like, what really have you got to talk about? And how does that back up? And I've had people in the room with me when I've been talking about it, and almost the fact that I'm not managing them and helping them with their careers, and all I'm doing is I'm guiding them and giving them some ideas. They appreciate the freshness, but it's actually hard to hear because usually they have people around them who are kind of, yes, you're definitely going to have an amazing speaking career because you've done this, that, and the other. It does work for some people, but you've got to put yourself in the best possible way to have the biggest chance in order to get where you need to get to.
For sure. Yeah. One of the things I think we see it just a ton is that it's almost like you're talking about the delivery of the expertise. Like I am a speaker, right? Like it's always the context of I do this as for delivery rather than I help solve this particular problem, right? To share this particular idea. It's the age old thing of business, right? Like you're producing an outcome for people. You're solving a problem that people have, ideally. And that's how you need to position it, right? Like it's not just I am a speaker. That intrinsic, that doesn't have any value. Just okay, well, great, but what does that actually mean for the people you serve? And how, you know what I mean? Like it just feels like there's that dissonance.
In speaking with confidence, ultimately the entire book is about anyone can be a speaker if you're talking about what you believe. And you're talking about what kind of your mission, and you might move stuff around a bit. It's what you really believe and you're putting your point across. Well, that's much deeper than just a story which is a moment in time. And I think speakers aren't helped in the market to understand that. Because they're given this perspective that actually you can stand on stage and actually you can tell a story and everyone's going to be wow. But the truth is, and the part that disappoints me about that is everyone might feel amazing. And I'm sure you guys have experienced it. I've certainly experienced it. When you've listened to someone who's done something amazing, like it takes your breath away. My problem always was, and like in my previous life when I heard speakers, and even now when I hear speakers who do this to me, if they haven't given me something deeper than that, then I've had an emoji moment, I've applauded and I said, this is brilliant. And I wake up the next day and I go back to my desk and nothing's changed in my life. And 2 weeks later, they're forgotten. Whereas actually that speaker who is delivering something deeper, who is delivering me a message which actually, many of them might not hit home, but that one person who hits home, 2 weeks later, I might not remember the name of the speaker. I might kind of remember the name of the story, like roughly, but what I will do is I'll be doing this now as opposed to this. And that, to me, is a massive thing. That, to me, is life-changing, literally.
Do you think that's like the biggest differentiator between those who make it in the short term versus the long haul as a speaker, or is there more to it than that? Because it sounds to me like if you can nail that aspect of the business where you're solving a true problem for people rather than just claiming to be a speaker, or you're putting emphasis on the thing, climbing a mountain and so on. That's the thing that seems to me to create longevity. Is that true, or do you feel like there's more to it than that?
No. I think that's absolutely true. I think then kind of it gets deeper in terms of that creation of the brand off the back of it.
Sure.
And that positioning yourself at the back of it, and that's maintaining the credibility aspect and where you have to be to maintain that credibility. It's understanding that the components around yourself are going to help you in terms of if you're looking to raise your fee or get more inquiries, events, whatever you want to call it. It depends on everything around that. But the crux of it is you become known for a message. I mean, what you want to do is become the person who, even if they don't remember your name, if they don't remember any of the stories, you're the person who talks about this. And you think of some of the great speakers kind of who have hit like billions of views on TED or whatever platform it is, and you might not know their name, but you remember what kind of the question is why, or you remember, I don't know, kind of the tipping point, or you just remember the catchphrase which that person is associated with, which actually means that wherever they go, kind of you want it.
Yeah, so you're anchoring yourself into that message, basically, for you to then build the rest of the brand around it and not lose focus.
Yes, and not always be chasing.
Yeah.
And it's a tougher journey. That's the other thing which I find interesting. It's like the quicker win is to tell the story because people are going to book you off that back of it. But then 2 years down the line, someone else has climbed a higher mountain or in quicker time or done this and the other, and suddenly you're left looking around, not sure where to go.
Yeah, man, we've heard that story many times. So
yeah,
we know that's true. One of the things that we've heard from other people in similar positions as you is that one of the things that makes a great speaker great is that they don't just have the message, but they're a practitioner. They're somebody that hasn't just at one point demonstrated it, but consistently demonstrates it. And I also find that the person that is not just the speaker, but also the practitioner tends to also have other revenue streams in their business: consulting, coaching, creating courses, writing books, obviously, content creation, influencing. Like there's all these different mediums that are connected to professional speaking. And certainly we've just seen a major shift in the industry as of these last couple of years. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but there was like this little pandemic or something that happened. I'm not that familiar, but so anyways, we just saw this major shift happen. And I'm curious, like, if you're looking forward a little bit into sort of the future of this industry, is it going to be feasible to be, quote unquote, just a speaker, somebody whose job it is to just get on stage and tell a story? Or do you think that there's going to be a shift towards this more, this speaker practitioner, the person that's implementing the things they do in the real world?
I think it's already happening. I think kind of the truth is the fact that when I think there's two different angles. Firstly, to say from a client perspective, if there's more and more focus, as in the company are booking more and more focus on what return on investment we're getting in this whole thing, then it has to be tangible stuff they're getting out of the whole thing. So actually they can put it into a business case and get it all signed off. So I think from a client perspective, they're going to get more and more pushy about what they're getting out. And therefore, what they need is they need currency. They need stuff which is present, because the world is moving too fast. First, and it's getting quicker. And kind of from whatever angle, that's what we're seeing, whether that's the economy, whether that's technology, whatever it is, the world is moving too quickly. And so you need a speaker who is living that, who is emotionally connected to that, and therefore can react with their speech to what's happening, not even the day before, but literally the morning when they're speaking an hour later. So actually, what they're no longer. You can take it further. You can say, actually, the concept of keynote speaking, kind of the concept about 40-minute keynote speech, we're moving away from that already. All they are literally doing is they're having a conversation with the audience. So I have this vision that actually any speaker, when they go on stage, they might have been briefed by the CEO of the company, and they might have been briefed by the event organizer, but actually they should be standing up on stage, and the first thing with a flip chart is just people I know them, they have a minute and a half to introduce themselves, and then they say to the audience, throw out what you'd like me to talk about, throw out some ideas or whatever. And because their knowledge is current, because they're living and breathing it, they're going to adapt their speech, because it's not a speech. It's a set of ideas. And stories. They're going to adapt that on the fly to what everyone wants to hear. So suddenly it becomes more interactive, and suddenly it becomes bigger than the keynote, because it's just the start of something which can influence the people in order to help them. I keep on coming back to this point, in order to help them going forward. So if you've just got that story, or you worked in business 10 years ago and were very successful, the truth is that it's no longer relevant, and you can try and keep it relevant, and you can try and keep it kind of in the moment. But the truth is, the moment's gone from yesterday, let alone from 10 years ago. So the easiest way for a speaker to do that is to stay kind of involved in doing something, whatever it is, so they can involve themselves. And I think then the last thing about it, on a purely commercial level for the speaker, if you've only got one speech and you've only got one idea, then the truth is actually that a company, a set of people can only book you once. Whereas actually for a speaker, if you want to turn this into a business, what you really want to be doing is effectively being invited back again and again and again, because they understand you're really not delivering a keynote speech, you're facilitating a conversation. And they have the confidence, when I say they, the client has the confidence that you have the knowledge to be taken off in different directions by your clients. As a side note, one of the interesting trends we saw right at the beginning of the pandemic, as the world switched to virtual and everyone thought speaking marketplace, that was the end of everything and stuff like that. A number of our clients and speakers started forming relationships where the client was like, hey, the world's moving too quickly. We've got the pandemic going on, we've got this going on, we've got that going on. We actually have and all our staff are working from home. We have no idea what they're feeling or stuff like that. Well, what we'd like you to do is effectively, we'd like to book you for an hour, or whether it was a month, say an hour a month for the next 4 months, whatever. And we have no idea what you're going to be, what actually we're going to be speaking about, because we have no idea what the world's going to look like in 4 months' time. But we trust you, so we'll have a conversation the day beforehand, and we'll come up with a subject. But also using the tools, virtual tools, whatever it is, we'll get the chat function, and people can put in stuff. And we absolutely believe in you and understand what your core is about and what your core messaging is about, that you will be able to deal with that in life. So that move away from a keynote speech to the conversation is where I think we're heading.